Welcome, everybody, and apologies for the late start. The Internet of People detained some of our attendees here downstairs. Welcome to 30 Rock. My name is Sophie Couteaux. I'm a managing director in the payments practice at Deloitte, and I'm very excited to be hosting this event today with NYPAY. The Internet of Things, it's very topical, and it's actually happening a lot faster than some of you may think. At least I wasn't aware that we're looking at 25 billion connected devices in the very near future. And there are already payment applications out there that allow a car to pay for gas or a refrigerator to order and pay for milk. And when you think about all those connected devices, we better make sure that those things make good payment decisions because there won't be any human intervention. And having said that, David True, the president of NYPAY, is the moderator for tonight's event. He will introduce the panelists. And after the panel, we'll have some time for more networking and also for more interactions with the panel members. So with that, over to you, David.
All right, now we start. Anyway, thank you again. Welcome very much. We're really fortunate. A fantastic panel here tonight. Let's see if I can go. We've got Sophie Couteaux, and I love the name. Christina, do you use Mercando as well?
Yes.
Mercando d'Avignon. And we've got Ed Maguire there of CLSA, and we've got Alberto Jiminez of mobile payments at IBM. First, why don't you just go through and give us a tiny bit about yourself, just do an introduction, and then we'll kick this off.
I do? Okay.
Should be on.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah, I guess so. So my name is Sophie Couteaux. I work at Mastercard here in New York. We have a tech hub close to Union Square. I'm part of a big group called Digital Payments and Labs. That group has been part of a bigger effort trying to bringing an engine of tokenization. So for those who didn't know, it's actually enabling device manufacturers to have payment credentials pushed on their device with the consent of the cardholders, but in a super safe and super simple manner. And that's what is powering actually the Apple Pay, the Samsung Pay, etc. In that team, there's a smaller team which is called Commerce for Every Device, and that's where I work. It's actually also the name of a program that we launched a year ago now. That works on pushing the same technology but way beyond the mobile. So when we talk about Internet of Things, that's really where we're working. It's pushing payment credentials and payment functionality to anything, to every device, so that you as a user, you have the choice to use whatever you want that makes sense at that moment, and it will be safe, secure, and simple. So that's my day-to-day job. I'm focusing on the wearable side, working on the strategy on how to commercialize that and making it easier. We've been learning a lot along the way because the industry is moving very fast. But yeah, very interesting, very exciting.
Great, and I'm Christina d'Avignon, the founder and CEO of a company called Ringly, and we are a wearable technology company building smart jewelry and accessories. So my bracelet right now is connected to my phone, and it will send me different notifications based on how I programmed it. So for many women in the audience, you tend to keep your phones in your purses. So you can set it up to alert you of phone calls. It can let you know when your Uber car is arriving. It can let you know when your next meeting is coming up without you always having to have your phone out and about. We also do activity tracking, and we are working with Mastercard and Visa to enable payments next year in your jewelry. So anywhere where you can use Apple Pay today, you can just tap to pay with your bracelet and your rings.
Hi, I'm Ed Maguire. I'm an equity research analyst with CLSA, which is a research broker that does not do investment banking, so we're non-conflicted. My main purview is enterprise software, so I've been covering enterprise software for quite some time. But I also focus quite a bit on innovation, the drivers, the obstacles. Every year I write a report on really the state of innovation and cover a number of key topics. A couple of years ago, I identified the Internet of Things as this kind of sprawling mess of an idea that nobody had made sense of, and spent about 6 months trying to create a little bit of clarity out of it with a big report. And over the last 18 months, I've watched a lot of the developments emerge. I still am very active in tracking a lot of the evolution in the market, and hopefully we can bring some insights. If anybody would like a copy of my report, it's about 18 months old, but it's still pretty relevant. Happy to share a copy later.
Alberto.
Thank you. My name is Alberto Jiminez, and I lead our retail payments organization in IBM. That is a software business, a software as a service business. We basically sell software as a service to other enterprises, to other businesses. It's for retail payments, but it's on a B2B basis. We don't have consumer offerings. The organization is about 120 people, mostly in Europe, some of them here in the US. And some of the items in the portfolio are e-commerce gateways, are a tokenization vault, like you guys, and a new set of offerings around IoT payments. The way we define, IBM has a very big initiative around IoT, a full division dedicated to it, headquartered in Germany. But the payments aspect to it, the way we define it, is as are commercial interactions that are triggered by a sensor detecting an event. Every time we identify a use case that follows that, we have the technology to help our clients execute on that. So that's what we do.
Thank you very much. I said we're very, very fortunate to have a panel that touches all parts of this big, sprawling entity. As I said, IoT ties many things together, many themes. You can tell I wrote this part. There's invisibility, there's identity management, security, and interoperability. And sometimes there will clearly be a commerce aspect to it that requires a payment. And because IoT is so sprawling and big, we wanted to limit this, given that we are NYPAY and we think about commerce and transactions, to that aspect of it. So one of the questions I have is does this mean that payments, the form of payments, will change a lot? Is it, how different will it look? Will the adoption differ between consumer and business uses? And Ed, since you're kind of the big picture thinker, I figured I'd kick it off with you and let everyone else sort of talk about kind of, say, next 5 years in that aspect of commerce-related Internet of Things.
Well, no doubt. I think there is a distinction if you want to really bifurcate the definition of Internet of Things into consumer. Consumer really includes what we talk about, wearable technologies, what Ringly is doing, but also technologies like Apple Watch and health trackers and that sort of thing, as well as smart home. And then the everything else, which is the really commercial and public sector, is really where I would say that the majority of the activity is happening, and you have a number. It really differs. I mean, this broad umbrella definition of the Internet of Things is in some respects does a little bit of a disservice to the profundity of changes that are occurring in different sectors. What you have is in, for instance, in transportation, the automobile itself has become instrumented to the point where if you look out 4 or 5 years, there was just an announcement today that Ford is announcing a fully self-driving car by 2021. We're not even going to bother to own cars. We will subscribe to transportation services that are essentially vehicles that are instrumented by a provider. Those payments, the payment for that service will be broken up into very small increments based on how long and how far we travel, rather than buying a car and having to deal with oil changes and that sort of thing. And this is a profound business model change that'll happen in transportation, which is one example. If you go to the consumer side, I think when you look at the convergence of identity around the empowerment of certain services and subscriptions, we were talking about Amazon earlier and how Amazon has developed the Echo, which is a device that you talk to and you ask for stuff. And if you've ever heard of the Amazon Dash button, for instance, it's like a little button where you can order soap or dishwasher detergent, or people have been talking about the refrigerator that automatically opens milk. You're really opening yourself up to a whole series of these automated transactions that occur as that are based on triggers. So there are enormous dimensions that need to be dimensions of issues, for instance, around privacy and security. Assurance that of service levels, but I think what's most profound, that I'd actually like to highlight, that's kind of the commonality, is that if you look at what's happened to the enterprise software industry, which is what I cover, Amazon has turned what used to be a business of selling things into selling services, and the way they got there was by instrumenting servers and storage devices. I mean, so you can see what's happening, and then you can charge just by ever smaller and smaller increments, from the hour to the week to the from the year to the hour to now to microseconds. The same thing is going to happen to other industries that used to sell things, and now they start to sell services. So, in my personal belief, I think agriculture, manufacturing, certainly the way that cities deliver some of their services are poised for profound change. But tying everything back to payments, retail has been a very early adopter of some of these technologies, and retail is one of the areas on the commercial side where we'll see some of the most advanced technologies. So I'll stop it there.
Now, Alberto, I know you'd spoken to me earlier about where you think some of the faster adoption will take place.
Absolutely. So I think one of the key roles that we play, we as IBM with our clients, is providing some clarity. As you said at the beginning, these conversations are sprawling. There are many ideas, many industries, and what we have tried to do is to create a few frameworks that we use to categorize use cases where we think there's an opportunity to have financial incentives in the short term to deploy payments in IoT environments. So we basically think about three right now. One is connected car, that is very clear. And under that, we have, first, of course, the car ecosystem. Someone mentioned the example of the fuel, but also usage-based tolls and things that you can buy around the car. That's the first one. The second one is entertainment inside of the car, music, movies, everything that you can consume in the car, or places where you can enter in your car. Like an event or a ticket, a place where you physically enter with your car. And the third one, more boring but certainly important, on maintenance and repair. Those are kind of the three use cases, the three categories where we categorize use cases with car manufacturers. The second one, where I think we think is low-hanging fruit, is fleet management. So this is a B2B use case. Where in fleet, for owners of fleets that have many vehicles, the ability to do expense management and reconciliation is something that we think has very tangible and measurable implications for their business today. Also, maintenance and repair. And the third one, the third short-term opportunity that we see is all of these payments, right? IoT is a big space. There's tons of benefits in IoT across many more industries. I'm focusing on the payments aspect of it. Is device, connected home, connected kitchen, connected appliances, where there are outputs from the IoT environments to shopping lists that could be active. You can actually buy things later, or you can actually automate the thing. So you order the things that you're missing, but also supplies depleted in other appliances at home. I think a very clean example is the printer that knows that you're about to run out of ink and that can order a cartridge for you. So I think those are kind of the places where we see the more concrete discussions. We have many more, but we don't. It's hard to articulate short-term benefits for the IoT environment owner.
Well, Sophie, I know you and Christina are working together. So where do you see the nearer term
Well,
application?
it's interesting because we actually have a very similar view of the short-term opportunities. So wearable is one thing, and we'll get to that. But we see like 5 verticals or like buckets of use cases. One is wearable, and that's like the lowest hanging fruit because it's already there. And it's very actionable now. There's connected cars. And yeah, a lot of the same use cases. Connected homes, smart retail. There will be a lot of facilitating the checkout, actually not having a checkout. There's also the virtual reality and augmented reality, and how we can use that to ease some of the stock management, for instance. And then finally, there's conversational commerce, which actually is not really a vertical, it's more like horizontal, going...
Conversational commerce.
Yes, the bots and the virtual assistants. Yeah, Alexa, the Siri, Cortana, and all of those people. But on the wearable side, I'm more focused on that one. I think it can be horizontal as well, in the sense that you can use your... I think today, wearable, we see it as you pay and you go. Tomorrow, there will be interactions with your wearable and your home, or your wearable and the shop you're entering in. There's a long suite of use cases. But obviously, yeah, short term is POS, contactless, just tap and go. You don't need to look for your wallet in your purse. Just make it easy. In the end, across all of those use cases, the idea is that nobody wakes up saying, I want to purchase something. So it needs to be, how can we make it easier? How can we make it seamless? Yeah.
You built a company around this, so.
Good. So one of the things we look at a lot is these like different eras in our history. So you have, and they like happen every 10 to 7 years. So you have the desktop era. Then you had the internet era, people were making purchases online. Then you had the mobile era, and now, that was like 10 years ago almost. So what's next? And that's IoT, and that's how we see it. And we're interested in now moving from mobile to being able to interact with everything around you in a similar way. And for us, wearables is that we don't have a screen intentionally because we're trying to move away from screen-based devices. And just so thinking about those interactions where we're getting back to, not so much sitting there staring at a screen. Nobody likes to do this, but we all like the functionality of that. So how can we then take that and spread it out into the world and into our environment? And so the first thing for us was notifications, then activity tracking. Now we're moving into payments. But with payments, it's so interesting because, again, you can interact with your environment seamlessly. So you can just tap to pay for things. In certain cities, you can use it as a Metro card. So you just, tap to get into the Metro card, to Metro. In offices, tap to get into your office. So little things like that. And how can we now take what we do on mobile and spread it out everywhere? And retail is another area that we're excited about as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking about a lot, too, because there was a gentleman who has a company, I don't know if he attended tonight, who has a company that actually is selling kiosks that use IoT to control these inventory. Is he here tonight?
I think that might be me.
Yeah, that's you. Yeah, there you go. You got in. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just that's an interesting example. If you want to just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So we have a system that puts products in it, and you put your card in, or you do more interesting things than cards, but basically you take the product off the shelf, and we just, through 3D cameras, machine vision cameras, we watch what you take, and if you take something, you're charged for it. If you don't, you're not charged for it. So just connecting that retail, ultimately we put the person and the product in context of one another as they purchase that product, and we understand it all together. So in some ways we are the IoT sort of connection between the product and the retailer, and everything's all kind of together.
What's the name of the company?
We're called Smart Access. We haven't launched yet. We're working with a home improvement retailer right now.
Question.
So I don't know if you want to go or hold this for later, but I'm thinking, oh my God, I would love that bracelet.
Can everyone hear things?
Get into the building.
Let's see. Maybe we'll be able to do the portable microphone just for a second. We'll give it back to you.
It's okay.
Don't need it.
I'm going to leap right to the elephant in the room. So I love the idea of a bracelet or something that I can pay with. I can get in the building, I can get in my house, I can start my car, etc. What happens if somebody steals my bracelet? Or, knowing me, I leave it on a bedside table somewhere, and it's gone. So, that to me, this is so exciting, but what about the security? What about, somebody locking me out, etc.? So, I don't know if you want to save that for later or go there right now. But
That's a fine topic, because that was one thing I was going to mention was just adoption. In certain things where it's a convenience, where it really is a clear convenience, it works. But in some of these other cases,
I actually love that this is the first question. Security is top of mind. It needs to be top of mind. It's actually more top of mind when there's a change than on a regular product. So people are more concerned about a ring that you forget at home than your own wallet that you forget at home.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same stuff, except that the ring or the bracelet or any wearable, you can control it from your phone. You can control it directly, say, I suspend the thing, it's not active. Or you can take the conservative approach. And in the morning, before you choose to put your fitness band or your bracelet, they are gorgeous, by the way.
I noticed.
You just decide, okay, well, today I activate my bracelet. So, but it's really... security needs to be like at the center of what we develop. Even more, it needs to be more safe than what we had before. And there are loads of ways of doing it. One is activate, deactivate. It can be for some wearables that you need to have your phone actually nearby, which doesn't make sense in all use cases, but that's one thing. Or it needs to be that you need to authenticate to your wearable when you put it on for the day. There are many, actually, since we are digitizing all of that, we're getting access to a lot more features, security features, all of the biometrics, etc.
But it is a really good question, because it's something we had an internal debate about this today, actually, which was, when you wake up in the morning, do you have to pull out your phone and put a code to activate it? And I come from a user experience background. That to me is like, whoa, no way. But then there are the security concerns. So it's always a balance there. But, there are always solutions. So some of the things we talk about is, yes, maybe it has to be connected to your phone. Maybe it'll only work if you don't if you don't do that PIN in the morning with charges of $50 or under. And with the security question too, it is connected to your phone. So if you do notice that you lose it or left it behind, and we even have a feature where if you go too far away, it could buzz you to let you know that you left it behind, that you can then go into the app and disconnect it and be safe.
question?
Yeah, so.
You want the mic?
Well.
Your voice isn't that big. It's a big crowd tonight. We'll have to get a walking. There's lapel mics, but I haven't figured out how to use them yet.
So a question for Sophie. So if this Internet of Thing really takes off, it seems to me, because I'm in the payment space, my company does a lot of consulting in it, and my view is that this brings Mastercard so close to being the processor with tokenization that you don't need all those other people in the middle. You might want to just ponder that.
Well, I guess that with I guess that with every change, there will always be a risk of disintermediation of some sort. I think that actually it's more of an opportunity than a risk in this instance. We can enable those payments since we are focusing on security and we already have the tokenization, the connection to the banks, etc. We can capitalize on that and actually build several layers of services around it. So I personally see that as a huge opportunity.
Oh, I do too. and Christina, just another question. On the is it all bracelets?
No, we do bracelets and rings.
Rings. So there's nothing that hangs or...
No, so we're sticking to the wrists and the fingers just because, again, a lot of our product roadmap has to do with interacting with your physical space. And so
Think about how we'll go with his wardrobe.
yeah.
And then
Cufflinks, maybe?
just a quick, Ed, on the car of the future, the self-driving car, what I ponder, unless you live in New Jersey, how does that self-driving car pump its own gas?
Gas is going away, don't you know? Actually, I'd recommend a fantastic book for anybody that's interested by Tony Sutton, called Clean Disruption of Energy and Transportation by 2030. One of the, if you're familiar with Moore's law, the phenomenon of the declining cost of processing power, there's actually similar trends underway in the cost of solar photovoltaic capacity. It's not doubling every 18 months, but it's declining at a steady curve. Same thing with the cost of batteries. And basically, Tony predicts that by 2022, you will be able to buy a mid-range all-electric sedan for less than the total entry cost of an internal combustion engine vehicle. By 2030, you'll be able to get a high-performance Tesla premium model car for under $20,000 in today's dollars.
By 2030, you'll need that in a wheelchair.
Yeah. So what? I can't wait. When I'm 75 years old, I am looking forward to being driven around by my steering wheel-less car, drinking martinis and yelling at the kids on the street. Electric. No, it's. I mean, this is all coming, and there's some resistance, but I think your processing power gets cheaper. Battery storage gets cheaper. The generation can come from a lot of different places, but ultimately, you're going to be riding in an iPad on wheels, and people didn't even realize. Go back 15 years, and nobody could conceive of how the smartphone would truly change how we all interact. If you go back to 1913 and look at a picture of the streets of New York, you'd have a bunch of horses and a couple of these funky little, horseless carriages. And 15 years later, there was maybe one or two horses, and it was all automobiles. Change can happen fast. So
the car backs into a plug.
Well, the cars. If you've ever used a Roomba, which is, they get intelligent. They find ways to charge themselves. And right now, there's a lot. I don't want to go too deep into it, but there's some obstacles like charging infrastructure, et cetera. But we're going to be, all the automobile companies understand that in the future, they are going to become providers of transportation experiences. They'll own fleets, and we will subscribe, and there will be all sorts of queuing optimization, so that it's like, hey, I need to go from X to Y, and Uber and Lyft are just the first step in that. There's a social transformation happening too, but you don't need to own stuff. You just need the functions that it gets you. Of course, you still want to drive a car and have a car and drive for pleasure. You'll be able to do that, but change is going to come very quickly, and it's hard to predict exactly. The future's hard to predict, right? As Yogi Berra would say. But
I think we got a question here, and then we'll get to Ms. Gigi.
Thank you guys for coming. A really quick question regarding sort of like sharing that data. Are you guys already providing that data to third parties so that they can build on top of that their own applications, or are you not at that step yet, but thinking about it? Any clarification on that would be so helpful.
Yeah, so for us, we're not sharing any data right now. We collect anonymized data, obviously. And with Mastercard, all that data will be kept in their court.
So, from us.
That was a nice pass off.
Yeah, thank you. Payment data might be the most sensitive data that you actually have. Health data might be more sensitive, but yeah, it's really, and it's actually also highly regulated. So individual data, no way, never. But we do have a department called advisors, and they have a lot of data analytics, and they aggregate a lot of things. Now it's only payment data, so we would not be collecting the steps and all of those information that Ringly would collect. It's data analytics based on payment. Now, just based on that, you can build amazing services, but it's going to be anonymized and aggregated.
I think there's a question here.
And David, are you okay with the audience taking over and you're not?
I don't have to talk all the time.
No comment. So I've got a question to all of you, but maybe starting with Alberto. And just thinking about that, we work with a lot of banks and issuers who are, just like the networks, eager to have their card be the one that's chosen to pay.
Just what I was going to ask.
And if I'm the refrigerator now, I'm ordering milk and I'm going to pay for it, I would assume that the owner of the refrigerator put a credit card down as like a default payment that will obviously be used.
Or a real-time payment.
Yeah, so, but in the past, as a bank, I had the opportunity to say, well, use my card this month, I'm going to give you double points. Or as a consumer, I had the opportunity to choose among different tender types. Now going forward, the refrigerator makes the decision on my behalf which card to use. So projecting into the future, how will the different payment providers be able to put their offers onto a payments platform so that the refrigerator can choose the best offer that month, the one with the balance transfer offer, the one with the double points? What is going to be the platform for the payment types to compete to be the payment that is chosen by the thing?
Great question.
Yes.
He's like, why did you ask me?
No, great question. And let me, I actually don't think that this is an IoT, what you just described, I don't think it's an IoT challenge for issuers. I think it's a software-initiated payments challenge for issuers.
It's I'm sorry, I missed that.
A software-initiated, anything that is software-initiated. So I think if I use, if my default entrance to a shopping journey, to a shopping funnel is Alexa or my refrigerator, then I'm surrendering the control of all the decisions I make today to fulfill that order to someone else. And it could be as extreme, well, first of all, like you just said, the payment type, so being able to be the top of wallet card in a situation. I think basically, I've read this in a UBS report, I think the answer, or what we are gonna see is that the one who onboards controls. And the way you enter this shopping journey, these shopping funnels, is the company that is able to convince you to onboard you is the company that's going to make decisions in terms of payments choice and also pricing optimization. One of the fears, I just attended this meeting where someone was expressing concern about using Alexa to order things, because now you get used to that and you don't know if someone is doing price optimization on a one-to-one basis with you. And you're not checking because you always order through Alexa. And I think that's one of the challenges. I am not sure.
Does Alexa run through the Amazon default payment method?
Yeah, yes, but I'm talking here about the price of the actual.
Gotcha.
So Amazon has the ability, and nothing against Amazon, but Amazon has the ability to do pricing optimization on a per product basis, on a per customer basis. If they know that I'm not anymore comparing prices, they have the ability to improve the margins with me. So I'm not saying they're doing that, but you surrender that ability, and I frankly don't know if there's a way to turn that back. I don't know if there's actual tools that issuers can use if someone else is onboarding their customers and the card is not visible, or you just forget about it from a branding perspective. So that's my view of the future.
There are people working on layered services.
How does Mastercard think about that then? If when things become a default payment method, if someone is shifting the default payment method to something that doesn't go on your rails? That may be a tough question. Sorry.
It is a tough question, and I'm not sure I have the definite answer to that. I guess in the end, it's consumer choice, but we're also building a solution that makes sense for the issuers. I don't think we have all of the solutions yet, but it might be part of, and it maybe is, I'm not part of all the projects at Mastercard, but part of the solution could be to build with the issuers some form of loyalty / credit card decision making
Personal
tool.
payment optimizer.
Does anyone know the firm Wallaby?
Yes,
Okay, so perhaps there's Wallaby software built in. Do you know Wallaby?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but the problem is that what is the financial incentive of the owner of the onboarding mechanism to apply that? They have a reason not to do it.
Right.
So I mean, I get it from a consumer perspective, and if the consumer has the power to demand that, I agree. But I think the problem here is that the financial incentive is not there. If I actually control the shopping funnel of millions of people, I'm happy with that. If I onboarded them.
And there is a
Pedro?
Thank you. There is a potential version of the future that says all the payment cards are going to be subsumed into a wallet that is kind of run by something like Wallaby, which at each point of sale interaction, it decides which is the most optimal card for you to use to get the most reward points or whatever it might be, which makes it very hard for issuers or networks to differentiate themselves because they're all kind of behind the scenes.
Because then it becomes an economic differentiation, and you have to up the game.
But that's on the card level. There's another layer on top of that, which is what's the best channel to buy through?
Right. What does that mean?
Meaning that should I buy the milk from Amazon grocery, or should I buy it from the local ShopRite?
So that's not how you pay for it, but where you buy it from.
Exactly, because the price at the ShopRite this week is $2 less than Amazon grocery. If I just do Amazon, they'll control the price point. Which is
It needs to be a combined approach. There will be, if you shop with Amazon, there will be a merchant being referenced. If you talk to Alexa and want to buy some milk, Alexa will not show you all of the different options. They will just show you maybe 2 options, but the one that makes most sense for them.
So that almost becomes a customer experience question.
Yeah, but you can also, like with Amazon Alexa, you can say, find me the cheapest paper towels, and they'll run through an option. They're like, do you want to buy these? They're $2.99, and then you have the option to say yes or no.
But it's still within the Amazon.
Still within Amazon, yeah. And that you're just paying for the convenience of Amazon and being able to order toilet paper through voice.
Running back for a question.
Yeah.
My name is Chaudhry. I'm in the payment space as well. So continuing with that conversation. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. Rumesh Chaudhry, I'm in the payment space as well. So continuing with that conversation, it's the consumer that's making that decision, and it's a convenience that he's going for when he's choosing to choose Alexa for the milk, and he knows he's paying extra money for it. But when maybe in the future the issuers can become so smart, or software can become so smart itself that the software will then decide when you're going to that particular application what kind of payment mechanism would be best for you, instead of getting a wallet or something like that. And that can happen.
But that is if the software is controlled by the issuer. But in most cases it's not. It's the merchant who sits on the other side of the table paying interchange, paying acceptance. So I get you. I mean, from a technology perspective, the solution exists, and Wallaby is one example. But the people who are onboarding consumers are not at a massive scale, are not banks, are Facebook, Amazon, and other people, and if they're selling something, they're on the other side of the table paying interchange. So there's a reason for them to optimize it.
And I think it goes.
I think we got a question back here.
Yeah, it's not a question, just a comment. I think it's more about the brand loyalty. I know Amazon, it might charge me a couple of dollars more, but there's a brand loyalty for me towards Amazon.
And free shipping.
Free shipping and payments is one of the options, but for me, I know that Amazon is going to deliver it to me, right? So it's a brand loyalty towards your issuer as well as where you're using it. That plays a very critical role, I think.
And I think it goes both ways. Like if you look at Uber, if I use my Amex card through Uber, I get double the points. So not only does that make me want to use my Amex card when I'm on Uber, but it also makes me want to use Uber maybe instead of one of the other car services out there.
If I could just draw a parallel, with cloud computing, because when people are purchasing, compute or storage as a service, there had been a number of companies that emerged as cloud brokers. The idea is that it would ping the kind of the availability of services and route you to the cheapest service. The reality is that those cloud brokers never really took off because people were looking for price itself was not the initial determinant. And the way I would describe what you're talking about, which would be essentially a payment or reward broker from the standpoint of the user, it would only be really valuable if those rewards were dynamic. I mean, if they were constantly changing, then you'd want to have a software agent that would monitor to find you whatever that best reward was. But as Christina mentioned, I mean, if you know that you're always going to get double points on Amex, it's just a matter of business rules to apply that to a specific person.
So there's a question in the back and another question in the front, but we'll get you in a second. But just to get clarity for the dumb guy question here, when the broker, that's the initial channel or device through which you make that payment decision. So in the case of Uber's a broker. You go to Uber because it's really easy. And so to the point that you made, Christina, that Amex has cut a deal with them to give you an incentive to make your default card that, bingo. And in Alexa's case, I guess Alexa's the broker, right?
Right. Or well, if you had whatever it might be, say an app, it's your Max Rewards app that routes the appropriate payment to whatever you're going to buy based on whatever the best deal is at at a particular time. If those deals are or the rewards that you get are dynamic, if they're changing all the time, then there's value in having a service that would monitor that. But if they're pretty static, it's just another layer of process that you got to go through, and it's kind of easier to go to Uber.
There's a question.
Hey, this is Nick. So I love the dialogue because we kind of talked about security. We talked about dynamic pricing, if you will. I want to shift the conversation to something else, which is in the world of IoT. Baseball would be nice. The world of IoT. What industries? And we talked a little bit about the industries that could be disrupted. How do incumbents kind of adopt their business models, and how do disruptors go in there to try to disrupt it? Can we talk a little bit about that? Like what are the right kind of mindsets and the business models that need to be built for the world of IoT?
I could start that off by pointing you to some work that's been done by Michael Porter in Harvard Business Review. Had written actually a couple articles about connected products and actually how because you think about IoT, that's a big not very descriptive term, but when you actually think about connected products, where you create a product that tells you how your users are employing the service and give you an opportunity to change your business models on this, I mean, it changes the value chains. And the experience that GE is going through right now is a great example. I personally believe that some of the industries that are going to be most impacted are those that have not been heavy users of technology to date. So manufacturing, agriculture, energy, certain types of energy have not optimized a lot of their operations, whereas technology or retail, telecom, for instance, they've always been very data-rich, data-intensive industries. So what GE is doing, if you listen to what Jeff Immelt says, it's really funny. He talks about GE makes jet engines, they make CT scanners, they make locomotives and wind turbines, but they're talking about themselves as a software company. And he has this quote. He says, "We went to sleep an industrial company, woke up a software company." The idea is that they create a digital twin of the products that they sell, and their differentiation is the fact that they know more about the products that they make than anybody else in the world, and then they can create a whole set of services that they can sell, whether it be guaranteed uptime or predicted maintenance. They fix things. They anticipate when things are going wrong, and they send somebody to your site and fix it so that you have 100% uptime. And then they're able to charge a premium for this. And he's saying, watch us. We're going to grow our business by selling more services And I hear the same thing from manufacturers that get very low margins on selling machines. Industrial machinery tends to have like sub 10% operating margins, but their services get 20% plus operating margins. And the more information they gather from users, where it used to be a relationship that would stop as soon as that machine went to the distributor, they'd have no idea what happened, and you'd have to send somebody out into the field and figure out what's going on to fix it, et cetera. And now when you instrument, there's just legion of examples where you can actually empower a user to fix a CT scanner on their own, because you can diagnose what's wrong and say, hey, we'll just send you this little part, and you can use an augmented reality app on your iPad that'll guide you through everything to fix it, and you can fix it in 30 minutes, and it ends up improving the profitability of the people that make the machines, and the customers are more happy. So there's a relationship change. The business model changes from operating. People are not. They're not making capital expenditures anymore. They're making operating expenditures. And actually, the success of the companies that make stuff is now aligned with the happiness of the people that are their customers. So that you create this virtuous cycle. It's pretty profound. And all I would say is I look at information technology as actually as a harbinger of what's going to start happening in some of these other industries. And you can really see it if you look at companies like Salesforce.com.
I just wanted to sorry, going back to the old topic, but just want to make the comment that I actually think the Internet of Things and the choice of which wallet actually brings wallets up, because we already have examples through tokenization and through the networks actually having brand agnostic wallets. I can put any card in there. You're going to come up a level, so it's not going to be, I don't think that I'm going to put my Amex card or my Cap One, venture card in. I'm going to put in my wallet, and there will be a host of payment options, be it my bank account and otherwise. So I actually think it's going to take the competition to that level as opposed to the individual card level. And in developed card payments markets, the reality is right now the card is the only interoperable standard, and I don't think that that's going to go away. In developing markets, it may be very different, but I think in a developed card market, it's just too entrenched. So back to the other topics.
If I may, and that's something that's been puzzling me quite a bit. I'm with the Quebec, the province of Quebec Economic Development Agency, and thank you for NYPAY and the Panelists for organizing this. It's very, very enlightening. So something has been bugging me. I work with many American companies that are fully embracing Industry 4.0, industrial Internet of Things. And it's going really well. And I was just lunching with a client today who is extremely successful in that space. And people are calling him to buy his services. And the reason for that is because it's so clear how they save money by implementing their technologies. And now here's the kicker. Why, as a consumer, am I being sold the idea that it's more convenient to go down the wearable route, as opposed to say it'll be cheaper, which makes, for me, a lot more sense. Any thoughts?
I would say in any case, it's all about choice. We're not killing the cards. We're not killing your leather wallet and still have it. It's all about choice. Now, a transaction, the cost of a transaction, it depends a bit on what your bank is setting up. So I cannot really extend to that. I think our perspective, all about choice. We're not killing anything. We're just adding on, and we'll continue to add on.
Let me give you a suggestion here. Let's say, and I'm not a fan of this, but the reality is a lot of people, a high proportion of people have credit card debt.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I have a different interest rate if I do use new technologies that you're putting forward or wearables for these purchases? I'm just.
I actually think it's a very interesting idea. I would turn to the bankers in the room.
Yeah. Which banker would like to stand up and offer an opinion?
I think that just kind of to put that in perspective, as an end consumer, payments is free. Actually, it is free. So if you go to Whole Foods and pick up $100 in merchandise and you pay with your debit card, your balance is down by $100, not by 102. The merchant is paying for that. So a value proposition that says that it's cheaper, it's free already.
Yeah.
Right? So I think now you're talking about, okay, if I extend credit to you, but that I think that's not payments, really. That's lending, right?
Well,
but there's
is when you're negotiating agreements with your retailers, for instance, why isn't that the prime focus of saying, you know, we want to have, like Expedia did in the traveling industry, sign up with me, register with me, and it's going to be, you know, you need to provide me your very best price as a hotel management company. And I'm just saying, there's a way.
I can give you two examples, if you like. One is dynamic insurance pricing. So there's a company called CalAmp that makes modules that you can put on a commercial fleet, and there's actually a couple of insurance companies where if you agree to be tracked and say, yes, I do observe the speed limit and I drive safely, then that will lower your insurance premium because they have the data to calculate that you have a lower risk score. The other case is if you decide to, with certain health, and this is where you start to get into some privacy trade-offs, is, okay, I wear a wearable now and I pay a health insurance premium, or my company, kicks in a certain amount, right? And if I have a certain level of physical activity that's tracked by these, then that will lower my premium. And if I don't observe that, or if all of a sudden, what else does it track, right? What other, if I agree to have certain metrics of my own, bodily, output tracked and given to the insurance company in exchange for a lower premium, where is the basis? But this is already being explored, and these are ways where companies, and it is insurance, because you have risk that can be correlated directly to the amount of data that's being collected. I would say that's an example where it's already happening right now. Yeah.
So this is a case of data in exchange for a value that the recipient or that the user gets, the consumer gets. Is that something that's going to vary by jurisdiction, like EU laws versus US laws? Is that going to affect?
Yeah. I mean, Europe. I mean, the privacy laws in Europe are much more stringent. But when you get into healthcare as well, too. I mean, you've got HIPAA regulations, and then you also have what's voluntary and what's being induced. I mean, you can describe giving your data as a discount, or maybe that ends up being a penalty if you don't, right? I mean, there's two ways of looking at this. So these are all being worked out right now, and I expect it to be a debate for a while.
Just to get back to that, your initial question was on the consumer side, how can we make it cheaper? And then we switched to the retailer side, how can we make it cheaper? And actually, there's a big difference between the cost to the retailer and the price. When you look at the euro cost to the retailer, and I did an analysis for some retailer not so long ago, it was funny to see that the cost of the transaction is actually this, but there's a side cost of not getting the transaction through, or being declined by the issuer because there's not enough security thing. And that was this. Versus the cost of the transaction. So actually, when you improve the security, when you improve, it's not card payment, you type in the 16-digit blah, 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 but there's a token or whatsoever, and the issuer is feeling, kind of recognize the data, see that it's coming from you, you actually decrease that rejection of the transaction, and that's way bigger than the cost of the transaction. So it depends what you consider, actually.
The merchant's still paying interchange.
It is.
Paying through the nose.
No, it is.
They're raising the price on interchange every 6 months.
I'm not in the interchange team, so I will not comment on that.
Ultimately, the merchant's still going to pay the price.
No, the merchant is still paying the price, but that's the cost of the transaction, the interchange, and the cost of the bank services, etc. Now there are other components of the economics of a transaction, and with the security of the transaction, you can do a lot.
Let me take the wearable one step further. Joel Garrow a couple years ago and Brett King in his recent book, Augmented, talked about going beyond wearable to embeddable in us. How does that change the game if that happens? And he's looking at that within the next 5 to 10 years.
We are the card.
So embedding the payment into your finger?
Anything that's interoperable or connected, so I can think in my Roomba instead of actually pushing a button on it.
I've actually read an article from a journalist who did just that. He inserted a chip under his skin and actually programmed it. Technically, I don't see the limitations. Personally, I'm not ready for that. But technically, it's a chip.
And what is NFC?
Yeah, it was NFC. So yes, you can do building access, you can do metro access, you can do
has
payment.
A battery or it gets battery? It gets
Well, you
energy
can do
from-
a passive chip. That's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's like pre-programmed.
Yeah, and now there are like new technologies for chip. You could do like active when you wake it up. So you could do it that for 2 years. You can make it active with Bluetooth. Now it's all technically.
I'm not ready.
But personally, I'm not ready. Technically, whenever you want.
I mean, there's more relevance for medicine if you want to have drug delivery for implantables for people with chronic conditions and that sort of thing. But I mean, you got to be a real geek if you're going to have something implanted just for convenience. I mean, come on.
Well, this raised a question that we talked about in the call before the event. We touched a moment ago on different jurisdictions and whether their view on data sharing. But is the acceptance of some of this, is this going to depend on age, on demographics, on things like that? Or is the convenience factor, and this goes for the consumer side, the business side will be different. And I know you'd expressed the opinion, Alberto, that some of the business applications might go faster. But this is really fun to think about. But just to your point, Sophie, I'm not there yet. Is that going to inhibit or slow acceptance on the part of consumer-facing devices? Or is it going to be a generational or a gender or a locational-based thing?
I don't know. It's interesting. Like so I've been working in tech my whole career, and my grandmother has never understood what I did anywhere I've ever worked. And when I started Ringly, I was worried she was going to think I was insane. And her reaction was, "Oh wow, that's awesome! I need that because I can't hear my phone, and I want to just feel that vibration." So it's interesting. I think it varies based on what it is and how easy it is to set up and how useful it is to each individual person. But you also have a generation of people growing up now with mobile devices, and they're just much more open to using technology.
I think I agree. I think adoption is going to be driven by this balance of continuity, convenience, the thing that I don't want to order things that I always have, I can always print in my printer, the balance between that and trust. I do think that adoption may be slow in places, in product categories where trust is low. For example, so I am probably very much fine giving the New York Times my credit card so that they renew the subscription without any active intervention from my end. I'm fine with that. I happen to not be so okay with my dry cleaners or my phone company doing that. It seems to me that every time I check, there's something wrong. They're overcharging me. So I do think that you will see the product categories where trust is high, where the vendors, where the merchants are able to make sure you understand clear pricing. That's fine. They can go in autopilot, and I can let my fridge order things or my printer, whatever. I think in industries where that's not the case, where there's a lot of overcharging or lack of transparency, I think I don't see payments being. I'm talking about payments, not IoT in general, or chips in your body. I'm talking about sensors triggering payments. I think the adoption is going to be low for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought in the consumer, because this is true. So the consumer component is really important because when today you do research, most consumers are not able to truly articulate what card they use, when, and for what reason. It's very difficult to get them to articulate that. But they like being in control. Well, I use this for large transactions because if I have an issue, blah, blah. I use this one for traveling because I don't want my other cards for that. Or I use this one just at Amazon because I want those rewards. So it's multidimensional, it's complex, and many times they are not even able to articulate, but they do know that they like to be in control. So I think the wallets are gonna have to be super smart. And yes, those loyalty programs are gonna have to be really strong. Yeah. And I agree with the brand comment before, that a brand is going to be really, really important. And the ability to trust the brand and that they have your back if you have an issue with anything. Like the case of the dry cleaners, you wanna have a check on them because you're not trusty yet of that brand. But in New York Times, you trust them. So that's why you're able to release control. And so there is also a multi-generational component, like certain, millennials may be more comfortable using their wallet in a different way than baby boomers and the next generation. So I think that's where the adaptability is going to be really hard because human minds are really difficult to understand or like releasing control. And on the data side, that's another thing because if I know that my wearable is tracking me everywhere I go for whatever reason, I'm going to say, well, this wearable, it's not getting on me. And of course, I'm not a millennium or but there are different segments have different concerns. So that's sort of interesting to think about.
20 years ago, when I was at Chase, we thought about commerce as the larger picture of then payments. Commerce was, was shopping for merchandise. It was deciding what to buy. It was ensuring that there would be a payment when you walked out with the goods, whether or not it was buying a bubble gum in the store or buying a shipment of automobiles from a Japanese manufacturer like Toyota. To me, it's been said here already that the payment is really low value in this thing, and I think it continues to be low value. I think the interesting thing, the internet, the promise of this is not the ability for me to leave my wallet at home and use my wedding ring to pay for merchandise. It's I think the value of it is the potential decision making to know when something needs to be done. And in part because the decision of what I want to use to pay, and maybe I preload it on Amazon, or maybe I want to make the decision spur of the moment. But the more interesting thing is helping me manage my life, and that's where the promise of the Internet of Things, I think, comes in. The payment is just the end of that cycle, the end of the commerce cycle, if you will.
Yeah, and I love, there's a lot of new brands coming up that are using mobile and the offline experience in certain ways. Like today we ordered Sweetgreen, you just pull up your mobile app, they already have all your information, you pick your salad and you go walk up and you get it, and everything's just done, and you have your loyalty points and Sweetgreen, and it makes you want to go there every day because you get free salad. So I think there are a lot of brands thinking that way, where like, let's not have the transaction be in the store, let's have it be somewhere else. So, maybe I can just walk in a store, use my ring, say, hey, I like that, and then it shows up at my doorstep when I get home. I don't have to wait in line, I don't have to carry bags. We're interested in experiences like that, and how can the retail environments change, and how can you bridge this online-offline gap? Again, without looking at your screen so much.
I want to go back to a comment that Ed made, and also the comment on commerce. And I don't know if you've taken Uber Pool before, if you take it regularly. It's a shared subscription type service, and you can see what the future is, which is as we move to self-driving cars and subscription-based cars, we're going to pool in these automobiles, right? And I had a shared service. It's a shared service, and I had an experience where I got in the car and there was someone else in there,
and she was like, hi, and she was friendly, and we had a really great shared experience, right? And then 24 hours later, I got in, I have a wedding ring here, and then 24 hours later, I got in another Uber pool, and there was a person, I won't name the gender, there was a person, and the person had headphones on and was staring at their phone, and we just faced forward and drove in the car. And so as we move to new cars that are self-driving, just the way the interiors of the cars are configured, and just the way that that we can be deliberate about creating sort of new social and rich shared experiences within the vehicle, I think we have a window of opportunity right now, or car manufacturers do, to establish what the social norm is, right? Because on planes and subways and trains, the social norm has already been established. But for something like connected cars, it hasn't. And so if we use this opportunity to create new, rich, shared experiences in these vehicles, then you can start to layer the commerce on top of it. And you can think of entirely new use cases that would come out of these new types of shared experiences in the vehicles.
Well, you can think about the difference for a shared transportation service will be the experience. I mean, somebody who personalized, who knows what your preference is, who knows the type of people that would make a great conversation. I mean, these are all kinds of these are ways that there's going to be a whole bunch of fleet owners that create experiences. Maybe they put fresh flowers in the car. Maybe they have. These are all kinds. But if you think about it as being a transportation provider, a lot of the human as the human tasks get automated away. And essentially get essentially turned into foundational services, then it's going to be the differentiation, the personalization that ends up being value add, and that's what people are going to be attracted to and willing to pay a premium for too.
Transportation providers' brand might be really people who like to talk and chat, or people who just listen to music and look at their phones or something like that.
Or remember those hot tub limos? Maybe those.
I gotta wrap my head around that one.
Go back to you could put product samples in the share.
Yeah.
What they did originally with airplanes.
Right, combine Birchbox and Uber, right? Something like that there. That'd be great.
Well, I guess since we are talking about the on-demand economy, I thought I'd connect the dots with the previous question around the path to purchase, right? And how is IoT adding value to the path to purchase? I'm not sure that we necessarily address that question, right? So if you kind of counterbalance that with the fact that a lot of, kind of reducing of friction in the path to purchase is, and you only see, high-level highlights of that in terms of millennials in being in more net debt position than they historically have been, a lot of millennials talking about all the impulse that they get from merchants is to kind of egg them on to buy, etc. So where is deliberation in that process? Is there opportunity for IoT to add a greater level of curation, greater level of thoughtfulness, a greater level of responsiveness in that path to purchase, especially at a time where this in the most richest country in the world, 2/3 of the country is living paycheck to paycheck.
I guess there's a lot of opportunity to add services. I guess there are many companies who have services, and we do as well, and many banks do as well, have services to help you monitor your spend day after day. And as we digitize all of that spend, you can better track it, and you can maybe be reminded on your ring, on your whatever, that, listen, for this month you've spent enough on the restaurant. I think we can build all of the tools, we can do a lot of the education, we can give you a prepaid card instead of a credit card. That's so far, we can go only so far. A lot of the tools are there. And digitization of all of those transactions will only make it easier for people to track if they want. Now, if people want to overspend, well, there's only so much we can do.
So has there been any thought on IoT and augmented reality, whether it's something like true virtual reality like Oculus Rift or even Pokemon Go, and how you might interact with these alternative realities and maybe even purchase a product sample in there and then complete a transaction?
Sophie's smiling.
Yeah, I've been discussing virtual reality more than augmented reality a lot actually. Lately, I think there are use cases that make a lot of sense where you would take advantage of the virtual reality to either get more information on a product that you're seeing, or actually be able to see the product like 360 before buying it, where the product cannot be easily displayed in store, either because it's too expensive or whatever. So there are a lot of discussions around that, and very concrete ones. It made me smile not only because of those discussion, but because when I left university, my memoir, so my end of university, my thesis, was about the application of augmented reality and on mobile phone. And it just shows me that sometimes you can be very wrong on the timeline, because I thought that would be coming like 5 years after my thesis, and it only came now with Pokemon. Thank you, Pokemon. But now we can finally play with it and add payment. I think there are a lot of good use cases. We need to go beyond those big things. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of activity in AR right now in the industrial space. A company called PTC bought a company called Viewforia, and one of the services that they've embedded into their they make computer automated design software, but what they've put together with Salesforce and with ServiceMax, a couple of their partners, is a service where if you want to go fix a Caterpillar tractor, you pull up your iPad and it'll show you, it'll layer the digital image of what you need to fix. It'll, first of all, if your tractor is connected, it'll tell you, oh, you have these two components that need to be fixed, and you hold your iPad over it, and it will walk you through with a digital image of a schematic, so you don't have to be trained to fix things. So this is happening right now, and it's just another way that manufacturers and people who provide service can enhance those services with connected products.
I want to come back to something Christina just touched on briefly that I'm increasingly interested in, which is accessibility for people with disabilities. And the Internet of Things, not just payments, but wearables and all of that. I've become kind of fascinated by the potential for this. Can you guys share any thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, I can. There's certainly so many new sensors and everything coming out in the medical space that, are going to revolutionize a lot of things. And my dad's a cardiologist, and every time I go home, he's like, Christina, I have an idea. And, one of the things is like doing your EKGs is like you put one ring on this finger, one ring on this finger, and me as a doctor, I can monitor someone throughout their entire day, whereas right now, they have to stick this things on their chest and wear it, and he's like, it falls off all the time, it's not accurate. And he said this would change our profession.
But I'm talking more about your grandmother.
Oh, and more about the accessibility.
More about accessibility, mobility, people who can't hear, people who can't swipe a card, people, how devices might help people with visual or hearing impairments, in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of research being done with hearing and getting, sensors smaller and everything. We haven't looked into it a ton with our particular use case, but I mean, just even the one of I can't hear my phone when it rings is a really simple use case.
Microsoft has done some work with HoloLens using some of the image recognition to empower. There's an amazing video that they showed at their developer conference because one of their employees is blind. And what the image sensors do is they will recognize that, this looks like a woman, between 35 and 40 years old, and will describe what's happening. And they showed him kind of walking around in the streets and having a voice describe what's going on around him, so that he was able to interact with people and empower them. And it's really amazing. I mean, there's so much stuff that's going on, but that's a great example. If you punch that up on the HoloLens, there's
HoloLens?
Yeah, Microsoft's augmented reality headset is it's called HoloLens, and you actually go to the Microsoft store. They got I don't know if they're doing demos of it, but there's a video that's posted on YouTube that will provide it's pretty stunning.
We get time for about 2 more questions. I'm going to make one of them mine because I got the microphone. So this was something that was actually inspired by a conversation I had with Ulrika earlier today. In our earlier conversations prior to this, we talked about payments disappearing. Payments, it's Uber. People talk about with Uber a lot. Payments disappears. So when payments disappears, and I think, was the word used onboarding, Alberto? Onboarding. The onboarding entity has a lot of control over what payment instrument you use. And thus far, the onboarding entities are not payment providers. So does this move towards Internet of Things and payments through that further decrease the profitability of payments as a business? Since someone could be onboarding you and say, use your ACH or whatever.
It depends on how you define payments. I think if you think about payments as just the routing of the transaction in the middle or just the processing of the transaction, I guess the answer is yes, because you're not onboarding end users and you are. But I think there's aspects of payment. So if you write software for acceptance, then you're in a great space. Then there are all of these companies that want to buy solutions that you can use to differentiate yourself and kind of come on top in that solution. I guess that's what Mastercard and many of the traditional roles in the retail payments value chain have been doing, moving to software functions. I think closer to the acceptance side than to the issuing side, because those guys the merchants are the ones paying, like someone said before, and they want to make sure they optimize. There are very concrete ways in which you can improve a merchant top line or decrease costs by delivering better software solutions at the acceptance end.
And if it decreases merchant costs, it's going to decrease revenue for the issuer.
I don't disagree. Listen. It's a tough space. If I were in an issuing bank institution, I would be getting into the software provisioning business for the acceptance side, because I think that's where the industry is going.
I think just to come back, I cannot let that. I totally agree. It's all about how you differentiate the offering for the merchant, but there might be a way to actually make it work for both entities. It's a platform. If you reduce the fraud, that's a benefit for the merchant and the issuer. So there are ways actually to find good solution at the onboarding point that benefit the two entities.
So I guess it's the last question, right? So a comment will be, if you own the token, you own the revenue stream. So that's something to think about. Secondly, where does the blockchain fit into Internet of Things?
Oh, that's a whole other.
And you forgot the last question.
Let me ask the question, Dave.
Yeah, you should. I don't know if we're going to get anyone want to say, because I can make a comment here.
I'll just make a quick comment that it's distributed ledger technology, DLT. Now let's use that acronym. So that's the
new acronym, DLT.
Yeah,
I got to memorize that.
Actually, there's a brand new World Economic Forum report that somebody just sent me a link that's about 130 pages. That's what they're using, DLT. Yeah. So
DLT. List.
So, but distributed. That's. I know IBM's been working quite a bit on that. And how do you solve this scalability problem where you have many millions and billions of transactions that happen between multiple entities with or without an intermediary? I think it's certainly in when people are thinking about a distributed, re-architecting the energy grid, when you have producers and consumers, where you have all these multilateral transactions. If everybody has solar panels and cars that charge and consume and produce to a grid, and this is already happening in Brooklyn. Ethereum is doing a lot of work on this. There's no doubt that this technology is being used as a basis for managing very complex microtransactions.
Let's. It's getting close to 8 o'clock, so that's kind of the time we wrap. There's plenty of, I think, beverage and snacks if you guys want to keep mingling and network a bit. But first, let's give a big hand and thank the folks for attending this.